The police state meets the nanny state. That is the topic of tonight's Byline. I get emails and calls from people now and again about Canada's police state. The fact that we are under constant surveillance. Some of these folks, you would swear, are wearing tinfoil hats like this one here. In fact, saying that someone wears a tinfoil hat is actually just shorthand for calling them crazy. The idea comes from science fiction, and some people think it can shield the brain from electromagnetic fields or stop radio waves from entering the brain. People that think we're always being watched might wear one of these or maybe line their baseball cap with tinfoil to protect themselves. Maybe I should start wearing one. I want to talk about a couple of stories that were in the Sunday Sun, both from Kris Sims, on how closely we're being watched by authorities. You've heard by now the story of Jesse Sansoni, the Kitchener man, arrested, strip searched, and more after his daughter drew a picture of a gun in her kindergarten class. That perhaps is a symptom of a wider trend of us being watched all the time. From closed-circuit television cameras throughout most major cities, in stores, in the bank, on the streets in some places, we are being watched. On our smartphones, through our smart appliances and GPS devices, we're being tracked. In our weekend feature, which you can find at lillyspad.ca if you missed it in the papers, in their feature, Sims wrote about some of the next-generation surveillance devices being developed, including the nano hummingbird. She said, the nano hummingbird looks like a feathered friend, but it really is a flapping robot, remote-controlled and armed with a live-streaming camera and microphone. Funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency for the U.S. military, it is one of many new biomimemic robots, machines that look like spiders, insects, birds, and snakes, with cameras for eyes and microphones for ears. It's all disturbing, and there's really little we can do to fight back and say, hey, enough, we don't need this. But the authorities don't need this either. They can snoop on us, violate our privacy, and rip apart our families just by watching what our children do at school. Jesse Sansoni's 4-year-old daughter drew a gun in her kindergarten class, and he was arrested, strip searched, his home was searched, his children were taken away, his wife interviewed, he was thrown in the slammer, all over a child's drawing. The Waterloo Regional Police say they're doing an internal review, but they won't admit that they goofed up here.
The child makes a drawing in class, which leads to some questions being asked by a teacher and some concerns raised, which leads to an investigation. Family and Children's Services attend, along with, and then regional police are brought in. And following an investigation at the scene, the end result was a consent search of the residence where the plastic gun was found. We have seen these weapons out in our community. We have seen these items out in our community. They've been altered and would appear to an adult to be a real firearm. In these cases, they were used to commit robberies. And in this case, I'm not surprised that a child had the belief that this was real.
But of course, it wasn't real. It was a toy. It was a toy gun. It had the orange cap on it. It was made out of plastic. It could not fire a thing. He was arrested. They call it a consent search, but police were in there before Jesse Sansoni, upon being allowed to leave, signed a waiver saying, yeah, you can search my home. This is unbelievable. It's unreal. It is wrong. I could go on and on. This is the surveillance state. This is a police state in action, and it has to be fought back against. Jesse Sansoni has told Sims that he will fight back, even if he doesn't know yet who to blame.
I still can't even point a finger on who to actually really blame right now, right? Because it's so many people, it seems like so many people involved.
Now, the Charter guarantees every Canadian the right to be protected against unreasonable search and seizure. This qualifies. There was nothing reasonable in the actions of the police, Children's Aid, or the school board in question. We cannot accept this as Canadians. And that's the Byline. Now, earlier today, our Kris Sims was in Kitchener, able to talk to some of the people involved in this story. Kris joins us now. Kris, you've been talking to people. You tried talking to Children's Aid. They, took you down the garden path and weren't available. But you did speak to the school board, and I understand the superintendent of the school board had some pretty incredible things to say about their role in this.
It was really interesting, Brian. We came here to try to put the dots together because so many people have been mailing us saying this is reprehensible. How could this possibly happen? How could the breakdown in common sense be so thorough between all these people? How did it go from teacher to children's aid to police and actually have this happen? And I was able to speak with the superintendent, as you mentioned, and he backed up the teacher. He said that she did everything right. If they see a gun or something like that drawn, they're instantly going to have a conversation. Out of that conversation is when they decide whether or not to call Children's Services. He won't tell me what was said because Children's Services won't close the book.
All right, well, let's hear from him right now. We've got a clip of what he told you earlier today. Here it is.
This is a difficult situation for the family to be in. And we do work hand in hand with these families because we co-parent. So obviously we hope that that we could move forward.
Excuse me, we co-parent. Chris,
yeah.
You're playing the role of reporter here. I'm not going to ask you to opine too much on this, but as a parent, I say no to Mr. Bereznik there. No, you are not co-parents, you are educators. You are not in charge of my family's life. How arrogant a statement for them to make in saying that we are co-parents with the real parents.
I think, Brian, the pedagogy has just kind of gone down this path, so to speak, that he didn't even seem to notice that what he said sounded a little bit odd. I don't know anybody that's ever heard of a teacher or an administrator claiming to co-parent the children that are in the school. And I asked him, I said, I haven't heard that term before. What do you mean exactly? And he said, you know, we're integral parts of the children's lives. We look out for their welfare. You know, we're right there alongside of the parents. So they see themselves as co-parents because they care about the children.
Well, lots of people care about children. Lots of my relatives do, but they're not. See, that's why I've got the tinfoil hat out today, Chris. This is insanity. I want to quickly talk to you about what the police were saying because the chief of police was on local talk radio, our friends at 570 News in Kitchener-Waterloo, and the police chief was saying that this is all just, you know, we thought it was a toy gun. Here's a clip of what he said on the Jeff Allen Show on 570 earlier today.
The gun that we found was a toy gun, a replica gun, a gun that, frankly, the same type of gun, not the same gun, but the same type of gun that has been used in a string of pharmacy robberies that we've been encountering. So, you know, you can understand why.
All right, so that was Chief Torrigan earlier on talk radio, and then you were speaking to Mr. Thaler, I believe it is, who's a spokesperson, and here's his reaction when you asked him about the whole toy gun comment. Here it is.
At no point in the initial portion of this did police anticipate they were dealing with a toy.
So I'm confused here because they say that there have been these replica guns used in pharmacy robberies and we thought we were looking for that. Then he says it's not. Is he trying to say they thought they were looking for a real gun?
I'm not sure, Brian, because I asked him a couple of times to clarify, because I heard that clip on the way in. We were driving here up from Toronto, and we heard that on the Jeff Allen Show, and so I was asking for clarification. They don't quite have their lines of sight straight on that one. What we know is that they found a toy, I won't call it a gun. They found a toy at the home, at the family home. It was see-through plastic. It has a brown handle and an orange cap with a great big spring in it. It shoots foam darts. It doesn't look quite like this one, which, by the way, I got on the plane this morning, no problem, no questions asked. But it looks like an obvious toy. And what the police were saying is that some of these plastic toys had been painted to look like a pistol, and that has somehow factored into this investigation. They haven't quite got that part figured out yet, I don't think. Maybe it's part of the internal review that they are launching. But again, I needed to stress to these folks, and I was asking him, this started with a children's drawing. It resulted in a strip search, a search of a home, a seizure of children, and ended with the finding of a toy.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Now, you had a great feature in the weekend Sun Media papers. I want to ask you quickly about this. One short answer to this question, Chris. Is this an extension of that surveillance society you were talking about? This isn't the high-tech stuff, but this is the police and nanny state coming together, looking at what your kids draw and deciding we're going to intervene in your life, in my view.
This is something that was warned about, honestly, by the privacy commissioners that I was speaking with. They didn't say this case exactly, of course, and it wasn't technological, but they said always, always be cautious of the state in affecting your life and yourself losing privacy. And of course, on behalf of Mr. Sansone, he certainly lost that in this.
All right, Chris Sims, thank you so very much.